The title of the video suggests that Soulcalibur 4 is supposed to be the end, but we do have a 5, and I guess 6 is sort of a reboot, so maybe that doesn't really count. But why was 4 supposed to be the end, and how did 5 come to be? Regardless though, before we dive into this video, please make sure to go and support the original creator. A link to do so will be at the very top of the description, like always.
For the events of the Soulcalibur series, there was the Hero King, Algol, the first warrior to completely conquer Soul Edge.
This we
His
did learn
foolish son,
about.
Arcturus, tried to seize its power but died in the process, leading the king to sacrifice himself to create the titular Soulcalibur. Since then, his soul has slept in astral chaos. However, thanks to the two swords clashing in Soulcalibur 3, he's back and hungry for smoke. Worse yet, the blades are stronger than they've ever been.
So how does he come back? I guess it said here that he's sort of trapped in the astral chaos or astral plane. But I suppose once the two swords are kind of broken apart from each other, then it creates enough energy to release him?
Another clash is bound to happen, but this one will decide the fate of the planet. What's going on, lore scholars? Welcome back to the Tale of Souls and Swords, the series where I go over the history and lore of the entire Soulcalibur franchise. Last time we ended with Siegfried and Nightmare's destined battle in the Lost Cathedral. But believe it or not, that was only an appetizer for what's next. The true final battle is approaching, and this time, everyone, including newcomers from a galaxy far, far away, will be involved. Folks, I am your humble lore professor, the Black Mastodonchi, and this is the complete lore of Soulcalibur 4.
I almost forgot that Soulcalibur 4 was the one with Darth Vader, Yoda, and Starkiller, right? Were they all in separate versions, just like from Soulcalibur 2? Oh yeah, there's Starkiller.
Soulcalibur 4.
But first, let's talk about how you can win the fight against evil in Girls Frontline 2 Exilium, the sponsor of this video. For those who don't know, this is a 3D strategy RPG for PC.
You know, I actually did play this near release, played it for a little bit afterwards. I think I recently got back into it. I've been playing it a bit more casually. But like, I kind of like it because it reminds me a little of XCOM, but when I'm playing it, it's like, maybe I should just start another XCOM campaign. I'm just sitting here hoping that XCOM 3 becomes a reality someday, even though I know it probably won't be. Or maybe I end up finding something similar to it that is just as good or even better. Because like XCOM 2 is one of my favorite games of all time.
You play as a commander of combat-ready units known as Tactical Dolls, or T-Dolls. It's up to you to lead them in tactical turn-based battles as you uncover the conspiracy lying beneath the New World Order. The game already has a ton of content, but now even more is coming thanks to Part 2 of the Corporation event. First is the introduction of the new T-Doll, Voimastina, with her exclusive weapon 6P71. She's a Sentinel-class unit
Apparently
with heavy
she's
defense
very
penetration
strong.
and burst damage. As the strongest second-gen doll, she is the must-have on any squad. Additionally, there will be a plethora of free things to take advantage of. The Corporation event started on February 19th and lasts for 42 days. Over the course of this time, GFL2 is giving away 55 plus pulls, over 11,000 collapse pieces, the free elite doll Baltilda, and a free commander skin. You'll also get an outfit select voucher, which grants you a new outfit worth up to 1,580 credit tokens. It was sent at the end of January and will be valid until the end of 2026. Plus, if you're completely new to the game, you get even more gifts. The earlier you log in, the better. This update also brings new cosmetics to the title. Voimastina's Irwin outfit puts her in this stylish suit, while Robella's Enforcer of the Law outfit puts her in a formal dress. Thanks to the game's non-photorealistic rendering art style based on physically based rendering technology, both the fits and the T-Dolls themselves look amazing. And the best part is that there will be a limited time discount on these outfits. In terms of the narrative, Part 2 of the Corporation event will include a major story update, with an English script that's 100,000 words long. And of course, it'll feature the high-quality CGs and animations GFL2 is known for. So whether you're a veteran or a complete newbie, now is the best time to get into Girls' Frontline 2 Exilium. Just by logging in, you can gain the strongest second-gen doll and so much more. And with a 6-month content roadmap, the creators are committed to keeping their player base engaged. New dolls, modes, skins, and IP collabs are on the way. So what are you waiting for? Check out Girls' Frontline 2 Exilium and take advantage of all the free goodies. You can scan the QR code on the screen or use a link in the description below. With that, let's get back to the lore. And thank you GFL2 for sponsoring this video.
Oh yeah. Damn, that was a very long sponsor section. I hope we got paid bank for this one.
Soulcalibur 4 launched for the PS3 and Xbox 360 in July 2008. And surprisingly, there isn't much out there about its development. I couldn't even find what the goal of the title was. However, when compared to Soulcalibur 3, I feel like the main objective was to improve what fans loved most about the series. For one, the graphics got an insane upgrade. Like, look at this shit! If you ever needed something to show you how big the step was from the 6th generation of consoles to the 7th, you've got it right here.
I think it was during that particular era as well, where the greatest leaps in graphics were being had, right? Because when you start from rock bottom, the only way is up, and you can go up pretty far. Not that the older games didn't look good, but technology was advancing at a pretty good pace at that time. I think it's no secret that nowadays we've kind of hit a cap on that. And I think most people would probably prefer a more stylistic look, a more timeless look. Developers talking all about how we can see all the pores on NPC skins, I don't really think sells games as much. It does sell it to investors probably, but definitely not to any gamers. And of course, the increasing prices of all PC parts, not really helping out anybody in achieving those kind of looks when they're playing those high fidelity games.
To add to the enhanced visuals, the game introduced mechanics to make fights more aggressive. At the core of it all was the brand new soul gauge system. Each character got a gem next to their HP. Blocking strikes depleted it, while attacking filled it back up. If you emptied your opponent's soul gauge, it'd start blinking red. Attacking them in that state would lead to a soul crush, leaving them temporarily stunned. From there, you could perform a critical finish, a cinematic final attack that defeated the opponent instantly. On top of that, to emulate the feeling of battle damage, constantly beating on your opponent could break a piece of their armor, and that piece would stay broken for the rest of the match. When it came to character creation, the devs streamlined it. Instead of players having to pick a job, they just picked which character from the roster they wanted to copy. This unfortunately got rid of the unique fighting styles introduced in the last game, but to make up for it, players were given way more customization options.
For all the Soulcalibur veterans who are watching this, which one did you guys prefer? To have the different fighting styles available, or just copying the movesets from available characters? Obviously, I haven't really experienced the system from the older Soulcalibur games, just the one where you copy a set from a character. But I'm kind of okay with that, because it's like, I like this character, I like the way this character plays, but maybe I don't necessarily enjoy how that character looks. So I can kind of just make my own OC of that character. But yeah, let me know what you guys think.
Additionally, online battles finally hit the series thanks to this title, giving folks a chance to fight with people all over the world from the comfort of their own home. Yet, all these fancy new upgrades paled in comparison to one thing: the return of guest characters. Cause folks, Namco managed to get a collab that was even more wild than the ones from Soulcalibur 2. These guys added Star Wars characters. Yoda was available on the Xbox 360 version of the game.
There you go.
Darth Vader was available on the PS3 version,
All
and
different
Starkiller from The
versions.
Force Unleashed was available on both. Outside of the hype for the announcement, I remember so many people being confused. How the hell were weapons from the 16th century gonna survive against a lightsaber and the Force? But to be real, younger me didn't give a shit. I wasn't the biggest.
Okay. When it comes to stuff like this, you could kind of have a suspension of disbelief here of they're basically using lightsabers, but you count them as weapons, like any other character in a Soulcalibur game using a weapon. Doesn't really matter, as long as the rule of cool still applies.
I wasn't the biggest fan of Star Wars, but I thought the characters looked so cool in this game, especially Starkiller. The only part that got me sad was that you couldn't use him as a base for a custom character. It made
damn.
sense, but I wanted to make someone with his moveset so bad. As
That
for
would've
how
been
this
cool.
crossover came about, I couldn't find any official information from the people involved with the game, but I did find this helpful video from Stumblebees that explained everything pretty well. If you want to hear the in-depth story, I check them out, but here's a quick summary. Apparently, the devs never planned to add guest characters. Just like series producer Hiroaki Toriyama said during Soulcalibur 3's development, they didn't want to use the same gimmick twice. However, the team's strategic business manager, Brian Shore, disagreed with that choice. He felt that missing out on guest characters was leaving money on the table. I mean, Soulcalibur 2 did phenomenally thanks to the inclusion of Link, Heihachi, and Spawn. Why walk away from a winning strategy? Eventually, he convinced the devs to change their mind, and they decided they wanted Star Wars characters.
I think that is a completely fair way to look at it. If something is working, then why not do more of it? But I also understand the desire of the dev team to want to try something else, something new, and use that as the gimmick to sell their new game so that they can continue to innovate into the future, which came in the form of the whole RTS section in the previous one. I didn't really know too much about like marketing and media in general when it comes to like the internet or obviously trying to sell a product until I really got into YouTube, and well, we've been here for going into the 6th year now. Still don't fully understand everything, but there are certainly patterns within the market if you're trying to sell something. It's almost like a template, as it were. When it comes to streamers, if you're trying to, grow your streams, there's a particular way that everybody kind of does it. Some people break the mold, very rarely, but there are those cases. But generally speaking, the majority of people are going to be following the same mold. Certain types of video games are going to be trying to sell it to their audience in pretty much the same particular ways, or trying to keep player retention using the same kind of methods. Slight variations here and there in between, but ultimately it's kind of the same idea. Guest characters are a pretty easy way to sell your game, especially to a different audience. Maybe get people who were never really interested in fighting games or the Soulcalibur series in general, but big fans of Star Wars to try and hop in. And maybe they end up liking fighting games and trying out more of them. Same reason why as a YouTuber you would try and do a collab with maybe somebody who has a bigger audience than you, which is also a part of that whole like becoming a famous streamer or content creator template that I was talking about before.
The idea was pitched to LucasArts and got all the way to George Lucas, the creator of the Galactic franchise. He gave his approval, thus allowing Yoda and Darth Vader to join the roster. Just like with Soulcalibur 2, they chose to make each character exclusive to a specific console. Yoda was chosen for the 360 because their color schemes matched. Same for Darth Vader with the PS3. But at the time, LucasArts was also working on its own Star Wars game, The Force Unleashed. To help promote it, they later asked Bandai Namco to include Starkiller as well.
I haven't played Force Unleashed. I have heard good things about it though. I should maybe give it a shot because I really enjoyed Knights of the Old Republic. I know that Force Unleashed is not at all similar in gameplay wise, but I do have a craving to play some more Star Wars games again. Or maybe the Jedi Fallen Order games could also be a good thing to check out in the future. Not that I really need any more games on my backlog. It's a bit too big now at this point to really manage.
And the company agreed. I actually have an Honest Gaming History video on that franchise if you want to give it a watch. Thanks to the collab, a special Star Wars comic was released alongside Soulcalibur 4. Titled Star Wars Visions of the Blade, it was meant to explain how the Star Wars characters entered the Tale of Souls and Swords. But I thought it was kind of pointless. It wasn't very good, and it didn't really add anything. You were better off just reading each character's profile in the game or strategy guide. The comic that came with the premium edition of the game was much better though.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know the reasoning behind why they thought this was necessary. Maybe they didn't think it was necessary, but perhaps they just thought it could be another way to generate revenue. But I suppose, then again, you have to look at it from the perspective of the times, what people were doing. And I think this whole diversifying media types was kind of a thing that pretty much everybody was trying to do. To not put all their eggs into one basket, right? It's just a smart financial decision. But yeah, taking a look at it now with hindsight, I don't think it was the greatest idea ever. Like, I actually kind of appreciated the fact that the crossover characters in something like Under Night and Birth 2 basically just had profiles saying, we randomly showed up here in this other game, and like, my game is cool. I need to get back to my game somehow. Or something along those lines and stuff like that. It was pretty fun. I don't really think anybody would complain about, the whole lightsabers fighting against the ancient weaponry and stuff like that. People who do probably are the type of people who would leave pedantic comments in the comment section under YouTube videos. Like, yeah, I get it. Technically, you're right, but also it's a video game.
It depicted a short battle in which Mitsurugi teamed up with newcomer Hilda to fight Tira and Astaroth. It was published by DC and included art from the guy behind some of my favorite Street Fighter pieces, Joe Ng. But just like the Star Wars comics, it most likely isn't canon. After the game's release, it received pretty positive reviews. Critics praised it for its beautiful graphics and soundtrack. They also loved how deep character creation was. And I can attest to that. I didn't play online because at the time, I had no confidence in my fighting game skills. Plus, my internet connection was pretty trash. So I spent mad time in character creation mode.
This is literally me in Soulcalibur 6 right now. Need to unlock all those cosmetics. And, you know, playing against the bots, not the greatest opponents ever, but some of them do still be beating my ass. As always, still struggling against Astaroth.
Even made OCs with their own lore and everything. All that combined with the equipment destruction system and critical finishes made this game one of the coolest things ever to me. Seeing one of my creations leave a battle all messed up felt anime as hell, and those final moves were like Sakuga moments. However, the title did have its faults. Many criticized it for how the guest characters worked, specifically Yoda. His short stature made it impossible to
Every single time, man. Every single time in a fighting game when you have a character with a smaller hitbox, it's gonna be a problem.
grab him, which was pretty broken. But he also had very little range and dealt low damage, so he was cheap and bad at the same time. Regardless of its issues, the game still won a ton of awards just like its predecessors. It also kinda got a PSP release with Soulcalibur Broken Destiny. It was basically a portable, streamlined version of Soulcalibur 4, but it included a new original character, Dampierre. It also replaced the Star Wars characters with Kratos from God of War. But you know what's most interesting? Even though both these games did well, we almost didn't get a new Soulcalibur after them. Around the time of the title's release, rumor had it that Soulcalibur 4 was going to be the last Soulcalibur title. Then one day on Twitter, Tekken producer Katsuhiro Harada basically confirmed the rumor by saying he'd only consider a new Soulcalibur if fans showed interest. They did their thing, and thanks to them, Soulcalibur 5 exists. Whether that's a good or a bad thing, we'll save that for the next video.
Yeah, I've heard some things from the comments about Soulcalibur 5, so we'll talk about it when we get there. I wonder if there may also be an aspect of creative burnout as well. When you're making multiple entries into a series and perhaps the creator has an idea of where they want the story to end and they're cool with it just being there, but then, you know, it sells well, so you gotta continue making it. Then maybe we try out some new ideas that don't really go over well with our audience, and it sort of makes the previous successes not as great as they used to be. Like, what exactly do you do? Do you keep on doing it until it basically fizzles out, or do you go out while you're on top? If you're working for a company, I would assume they would want to squeeze every little bit of money that they can out of that, so yeah, it's probably going to keep on going. And just to clarify, not that I want the series to die, no. I definitely want more Soulcalibur entries in the future, and hopefully the Soulcalibur 7 rumors are true, but I guess I also just don't want the series to fizzle out and die like it almost did.
But as we get into the lore, you'll see how Soulcalibur 4 still serves as a finale of sorts, and very few characters get happy endings. So without much further ado, let's return to this tragic timeline. Soulcalibur 4 occurs right after Soulcalibur 3. Nightmare and Siegfried just finished their class in the Lost Cathedral, obliterating the place in the process. But this clash was a lot more disastrous than I made it seem in the last video. The maelstrom of chaotic energy literally ripped Siegfried, Nightmare, and Zasalamel apart. It released waves of destruction that warped the surrounding area. Nightmare reappears later with Soul Edge, but the knight is back to being a lifeless husk of armor. So, Soul Edge teleports with it to a place we know all too well, Ostrheinsburg Castle. Here it begins to bring life to the armor, but its current power isn't enough. So it sends a call to all its different pieces spread around the globe. It's time to come home. As more and more fragments return, Soul Edge's strength reaches heights never before seen. Eventually, Nightmare is revived, but this time, he's not just an amalgam of the tormented souls from Ostrheinsburg Castle. He is the embodiment of Inferno. The armor is not enough to hold a full spirit of Soul Edge though, so the blade roots itself inside the castle, spreading its energy throughout the city of Ostrheinsburg. This completely corrupts the inhabitants of the place. Now all the Azure Knight needs to do is wait until Siegfried and Soulcalibur bring their asses for the smoke. Speaking of, after the Lost Cathedral explosion, our boy Siggy is hit with visions of his old friends from Schwarzwind in his sleep. In case you don't remember, that's the mercenary group he used to lead before he, killed his dad. He tells them that he must go on this Soul Edge journey alone. He already caused so much pain as Nightmare, He refuses to bring anyone else into this mess.
I get the concept, I get the idea, but also it is mature to know when you need to accept help. And old Siggy over here, I think definitely needs a lot of help in many different ways. But of course, I suppose back then, especially during those times, he would most likely be told to just walk it off.
Once he wakes up, he decides that he will become as cold as the spirit sword he carries. That's the only way he can stop the cursed sword while protecting those he cares for. Then, he sets out to face Soul Edge for the final time. Now, this super soulless attitude is definitely influenced by Siegfried's past actions, but I'm pretty sure he's also being influenced by Soulcalibur. The new Legends of Project Soul book states that this—
Yeah, we gotta remember too that Soulcalibur is also a part of Soul Edge. It's not inherently a good thing. It's just capable of combating the Soul Edge.
Spirit Sword, like its cursed counterpart, possesses its user. While becoming its puppet, the user is bound by crystals and slowly becomes emotionless. This process is known as crystallization. Just by looking at Siegfried's new fit in Soulcalibur 4, it's pretty obvious that our boy's been crystallized.
Yeah.
So once this Soul Edge business is done, someone needs to take that sword away from him. As for the third character who witnessed the clash, Zasalamel was 2 seconds away from receiving his ultimate wish of death. However, the maelstrom of chaotic energy showed him something crazy: the future. He witnessed the construction of skyscrapers, the first trip to the moon, and so much more. Was he really gonna die and miss out on all that? No. With the 2 swords in his grasp, he could witness, nay, lead the human race to this future. So using every bit—
Oh god. Is this where the whole Soulcalibur lore somehow ties into Warhammer 40k, and Zasalamel is actually the god emperor of mankind?
Of his willpower, he literally pulls himself together and reappears near the Lost Cathedral. He senses the power of the 2 swords and knows that another battle is coming soon. But he's not worried about that. He feels like his little trip in the abyss after their first clash gave him the experience he needed to conquer both swords. What he is worried about is the entity that was awakened thanks to the clash: Algol. Using the energy from Astral Chaos, he crafts himself a body with his own replicas of Soulcalibur and Soul Edge. Then he summons the Tower of Glory, the same tower where he sacrificed himself to form the Spirit Sword eons ago. But this time, he calls it the Tower of Remembrance. Now he dreams of conquering the mortal realm by using the power of both blades. However, his time is limited because his body and the tower were made from thoughts and memories. And since he manifested in Ostrheinsburg Castle, he's kinda stuck here until he's able to claim Soulcalibur and Soul Edge. Then he'll be able to walk amongst the living again. So his hope is that the erection of his tower will bring worthy fighters to him, and one of them will be carrying the swords he desires. This development finally gets Zasalamel to understand why the Guardians of the Spirit Sword were so anal about protecting Soulcalibur. This whole time, it contained the power-hungry soul of the Hero King. No wonder they called it dangerous. After some thought, he welcomes this new challenge. He sees Algol as a worthy obstacle to his goals. So like Siegfried and Nightmare, he makes his way to Ostrheinsburg Castle.
That is actually really funny, but also a good bit of writing where a character doesn't understand the reasoning behind why, some group or the group that they're part of is doing the thing that they're doing, actively goes against it, and then somehow, in some weird way, they end up coming back to do exactly what their group was trying to do in the first place. After going to the absolute limit, they've come to a new understanding. And maybe the motives for it aren't exactly the same, but ultimately it achieves the same end goal.
And that about covers how Soulcalibur 4's story begins. Now join me as we go into how almost the whole roster gets done dirty by the plot. First, we have Soul Edge's #1 fan, Tira. Her crazy ass was also at the Lost Cathedral when shit went down, but she didn't have the power of the swords or Zasalamel's magic to protect her. She took that explosion right to the face. In the process, her mind broke. Again. But her love for Soul Edge gave her the strength to survive. After the smoke cleared, her mind reformed into 2 entities that represented the extremes of her original self. Then, to help her god Soul Edge, she goes back to what she was doing in Soulcalibur 3.
Okay, wait a minute. Like 2 physical entities? And not just like a multi-personality thing?
Messing with folks from the roster. We'll go over that once we get into those specific character stories, but what's more important are the thoughts that creep up in Tira's head. As she dreams of Nightmare beating the brakes off of Siegfried, she comes to the realization that Soul Edge will consume everything after it wins. That includes her. This puts some fear in her, but she shoves that feeling down so she can be the best minion ever. On the
Oh my
other side of
God.
the alignment chart, we
It's always that moment when you're watching a show and you're seeing like the minion of the bad guy, and you're thinking to yourself, you know, this isn't going to end well for you. Very obviously, the bad guy does not care about you and is quite obviously using you. But then again, these kind of people, they're just vulnerable to this. They're kind of the perfect people to end up becoming the bad guy's henchmen because they just don't care anymore, or they have nothing else to lose, or they really just can't see it for what it is because they're not thinking clearly anymore. Especially with the fact that her mind is completely broken and she's a little batshit crazy. Yeah, she certainly falls into this sort of category. Meets the correct criteria to be the evil bad guy's minion.
find Sophitia. Last time she was temporarily thrown off her quest because Tira was out here joking about kidnapping her kids. She ends up making it to Ostrheinsburg Castle, but here she's hit with the worst news imaginable. Tira was deadass. She took her daughter Pyrrha while our girl was away. Once they confront each other, Tira's like, "Damn, are you feeling bad? I would too if I left my kids to fend for themselves." Sophitia is left torn. She came to destroy Soul Edge, but she can't. If its energy is running through her daughter's blood, then destroying the sword can lead to her death. With that realization, Hephaestus' last warrior abandons the hunt for the cursed sword. Instead, she succumbs to it and acts as the sentinel of Ostrheinsburg Castle to stop anyone from entering.
Oh no, dude. Ooh, I don't know how I feel about that sort of development for her. It's also another classic of good guy has to do evil thing or else person that they love will perish. But it's moments like this where I'm like, Hephaestus, where the fuck are you? What are you even doing? The gods are just kind of there. The evil ones seem to be quite powerful. But I guess, generally speaking, all the gods that we've seen so far haven't really interfered. They've sent their minions to do their bidding, but they didn't really help them or hinder them. Although it might be arguable that Hephaestus kind of hindered everybody by not letting everybody know the basic information of what he was trying to get at. But, you know, that's neither here nor there. Gods are gods, I guess.
For those who may not remember, Sophitia and Taki were the first true heroes of this story.
Yeah.
So her joining the dark side should show you just how wild this story's about to get. Now let's move on to Sophitia's sister, Cassandra. She returns to the cursed city that almost broke her resolve in Soulcalibur 3. Everyone here has been morphed by Soul Edge's energy, so an army already tried attacking the place. But when Cassandra pulls up, she finds the army retreating. Curious, she continues her investigation until she runs into the man responsible for all this, Raphael Sorrel. She challenges him, but she's nowhere near his level. It takes everything within her to...
I mean, yeah, Cassandra, I don't think really knows how to fight. Raphael's a trained fighter who, I believe it was Soulcalibur 3, actually fought against the Soul Edge and won. And not necessarily a complete victory, but he did. Or actually, no, might have been Soulcalibur 2. Because in 3, he was already, like, basically a vampire, right? And that happened after the events of Soulcalibur 2.
land one solid hit. But that's enough for our vampiric fencer. He recognizes that Cassandra also has the ability to slay evil, but she ain't at the level of that holy stone that burned him in the last game, so he leaves her looking stupid. Cassandra calls him a coward, then soon realizes that that was all a distraction. Dude took her Soul Edge fragment. With another L under her belt, she composes herself and tries to search for citizens who aren't cursed. She could at least help them escape. Eventually, she finds the folks that Keelik and Changhua cured using their Dvapara Yuga fragment. As she helps them escape, they tell her about the duo and their holy stone. This has got to be the same holy stone that Raphael mentioned, so once they're safe, she heads out to collect more info on it. Sadly, she ends up getting nothing. But she does hear word about a blonde man in crystallized armor carrying a giant crystal sword. She correctly
Wonder who that
surmises
could
that
be.
this sword and the stone are linked, so she picks up on Siggy's trail and follows him to Ostrheinsburg. Once here, she's confronted by her dear sister. Sophitia's not in her right mind, so she's forced to fight her, but our girl is way too shocked by all this. It gives the former holy warrior the opening to knock her out in one blow. Going back to
Damn.
Raphael, after dealing with that army and Cassandra, he finds out about the descendants of the Guardians of the Spirit Sword. Using the fragments of Soul Edge he owns, he draws them out of hiding, and they tell him everything about Soulcalibur. He realizes this is what he needs to make a world fit for his daughter Amy. Why waste time on Soul Edge when the Spirit Sword can defeat it? So he proceeds to kill the descendants before heading out to Ostrheinsburg Castle. As for Amy, she gets so
God.
worried while waiting for him to return that she leaves to find him herself. Speaking of folks looking for each other, let's move on to Xianghua and Keelik. Both spent the majority of their time in Soulcalibur 3 on training arcs. The former is feeling optimistic about restarting her quest. She knows she's ready to face Soul Edge now, even without Soulcalibur by her side.
That's good.
When it comes to Keelik, he believes that he found the secret to ending all this strife once and for all. His training with Edgemaster made it clear to him that Soul Edge and Soulcalibur are similar in nature. Both are extremely dangerous and shouldn't exist. So instead of using one to destroy the other, he wants to balance them. Find a point where their opposing mights will cancel each other out. When Xianghua finds...
And technically speaking, we kind of achieved that last time when they were both joined with each other. But I guess it wasn't true equilibrium to the point where nobody could ever use them ever again.
Keelik, she's ecstatic to see him. Not just because this is the homie, but because she low-key has feelings for him. However, she would rather end their journey before telling him. On the flip side, Keelik is completely aware of Xianghua's feelings. But here's the thing. Xianglen was Xianghua's older sister, whom she never learned about. And remember, Keelik and Xianglen were raised as siblings before he killed her during the Evil Seed incident. So not only does this make Xianghua feel more like a sister to him, but seeing her smile reminds him of that terrible night when he went berserk. This makes things awkward between...
Yeah, that is probably a good reason. I mean, up till now, I don't really know if bro has forgiven himself for all the things that he's done.
To get rid of that, they need a third wheel. And who better to fill this role than their old friend Maxi? They end up finding him in India, and though his memories of them were gone thanks to his Soul Edge fragment surgery back in Soulcalibur 2, they come rushing back once they reunite. But unfortunately, this happy moment is shat on almost immediately. The Devapara Yuga shard that Keelik carries isn't vibing with the Soul Edge fragment inside Maxi. Once Keelik notices, he tries to reassure his bro by telling him the shard can cure the evil energy within him. But Maxi can't risk that. The fragment is lodged deep within his body, and it's the only thing keeping it mobile. So, with regret in his heart, he leaves the two. Keelik and Xianghua then return to Europe.
Is it like if that gets purified, then he also becomes incapacitated or something like that? That's the fear that he has. I can certainly see the line of thinking, and that might be exactly how it goes. But I suppose we probably needed some sort of narrative reason to not have them just go on the same journey again, and try and do something different this time. Not too sure exactly how I feel about that type of choice. But then again, we already know that these devs or these writers, they kind of want to do something new, want to innovate.
And if you thought things were awkward before, you ain't seen nothing yet. While Xianghua tries to keep the energy up with positive vibes, Keelik is pretty much silent. He's too focused on his mission, as well as what's going on with Maxi. Then to twist a knife in both their hearts, they hear word that Maxi is on his way to a Stridesburg castle. If he's looking for Soul Edge, they'll have to fight him. And she doesn't want to fight the homie. He's like the big brother they'd ever had. Either way, after watching some Soul Edge fragments make their way to a Stridesburg, they continue their trek. But why is Maxi heading to the castle? One word, or name, Tira. After he left his former travel buddies, he ran into her, and she couldn't have been more hype. See, our boy Maxi is sort of an anomaly, because he has a Soul Edge shard within him, but he's still himself. Tira saw this as a huge win. His soul's about to be the tastiest thing Soul Edge has ever had.
Oh, God.
So she said,
Hey, nunchuck guy. You know that dude you've been trying to kill for multiple games now? Astaroth? Yeah, he's way stronger now. Ain't no way you're beating him without Soul Edge.
Maxi could sense the evil energy coming from her, so he knew trusting her was a mistake. But he didn't care.
No.
At this point, he's willing to do anything to avenge his crew, even if that means losing himself and all the people he cares about.
Oh no, dude. It's this exact thought process, these exact emotions that the Soul Edge preys on. It's more than likely the reason why it survived this long and will continue to do so until the end of time. Human nature.
After their conversation, he left India to head to Ostrheinsburg. But what about Astaroth? Well, after tearing up the home of the cult that made him, he ends up finding the warrior he was based on, Rock. And he beats the mess out of him. In doing so, his world completely changes. Up until now, Astaroth was a servant of Ares, but defeating the white giant makes him self-aware. Cracks begin to form around his body, and out of them flows his ego in the form of red light. While the golem goes through this transformation, Rock uses the chance to escape. Astaroth couldn't care less though. He's more pissed about the fact that he was blindly following Ares for like 3 games now. This throws him into a fit of rage that decimates the surrounding area. Then he decides to empower the Soul Edge fragments within him by going on a killing spree. Eventually, Tira finds him and works her evil magic. She's like,
Well, look at you eating them souls. But this is nothing. If you want real power, the power to slay a god, you should follow me.
Holy shit, man. Is Tira just the pot stirrer? She's the instigator in this game. She just goes around and sets everybody on the warpath.
like Maxi, Astroth is fully aware that Tira is part of the dark side. She just plans on using him for Soul Edge, but he doesn't care either. He
Oh my
follows her
God.
to a Stroudsburg castle to stand by Nightmare's side once more. But this time, he plans on devouring both the Knight and the Cursed Sword the moment he gets the chance. As for Rock, after his escape, he finds a nearby hot spring to heal. He spends time thinking about the Golem. How the hell did he know his fighting style? It was way too similar to be a coincidence. And how the hell was he so strong? After some time, he decides to make it his responsibility to slay Astroth. However, he feels conflicted. He still hasn't found Soul Edge. Without it, he can't return to Bangu as the father he deserves. Then, to his surprise, he hears word that Astroth's working for Nightmare now. This means his two quests are connected. This has got to be destiny. Once he's fully healed, he too makes his way to the Cursed Castle, with newfound motivation. Elsewhere, we find Astroth's old comrade, Aeon, having the worst time. He was
Oh.
struggling with the fact that he couldn't return to his human form, but eventually the animal instincts took over. Now, dude is back to being a full-fledged lizard man. On the bright side, he's not alone. He's found by a squad of lizard men, and thanks to his superior physique and battle prowess, they make him their leader. Under his command, they go on violent rampages across Europe, because that's exactly what this world needs.
Yeah, duh.
Each night, he's visited by bits and pieces of his memories, but when morning hits, the monster takes over. However, everything changes on one night when Aeon pauses and thinks about what he could be missing. Why does he feel so empty? Then, it hits him. He's missing his soul. And where else would it be but inside Soul Edge? This revelation motivates him so much that even when he wakes up and forgets everything, he's driven by the urge to find the cursed sword. Moving on to the final
I guess I kind of see that reasoning. I just hope that Aeon someday maybe finds some sort of redemption, something to potentially give him hope. Because I feel like at every single pass, this man has he hasn't had the greatest run ever. And I haven't forgotten that Hephaestus was the one who sent him on this mission in the first place and didn't really help him at all. So there is that.
member of Nightmare's old squad, we have Ivy. Ever since Soulcalibur 3, she's been looking for the Spirit Sword in order to destroy Soul Edge. But the most obvious fact stops her journey. She's got cursed blood running through her veins. How's she gonna wield Soulcalibur like
Cervantes?
that? So she returns to her lab to come up with another strategy. Little does she know that her fuck-ass daddy Cervantes is on his way to visit her.
Oh
And it's
boy.
not to see how much his daughter's grown. See, Cervantes has been out looking for souls to get strong enough to destroy Soulcalibur. The souls he devoured ended up turning into his own personal undead army. But he needed even more power. That's when he thought about Ivy. Once he makes it to her lab, this bastard eats the majority of her soul. My dumbass thought that since he was no longer under Soul Edge's control, he'd end up redeeming himself in some way. But no,
Yeah, no.
Cervantes will always be the scum of the sea.
Okay. I guess you do just need your villain characters who are just villains for the love of the game. Makes things fun that way. I don't really see Cervantes having one of those redemption arcs ever. Like, even in future stories for Soulcalibur, it just doesn't seem like the right character for that.
The act fills him with more power than he could ever imagine. Once he's satiated, he leaves. But not soon after, his personal Soul Edge, which he made out of fragments a while ago, tries to rip itself from his grasp. At first, he's left confused, but this could only mean one thing. Soul Edge is back and trying to become whole. He can feel the evil energy within him rising, so he happily lets the sword go. Then he pulls out his old sword from his mortal days, Acheron, and makes his way to a Stroudsburg castle to claim the cursed blade. Returning to Ivy, Homegirl is barely alive. Luckily, she has a plan, or at least a concept of one. Before her father violated her, she was working on creating a body capable of wielding Soulcalibur. One of the things she made for this project was an artificial soul, so she uses it to save her life. With
She what? Ivy just made an artificial soul and an artificial body? What is she doing in that lab of hers?
that, she drops the whole Soulcalibur mission, grabs her blade, and returns to her original quest, destroy Soul Edge. Now let's return to Ostrheinsburg Castle for a sec. Here we find the #1 ride or die, Voldo, taking yet another L. He was out looking for a
Of
pupil
course.
and Yoshimitsu, but I guess he dropped.
Bro, I don't think Voldo has taken any W, and not a single W this entire series. This man's story is just tragedy. I mean, him and Aeon could be best friends at this point, but I think Aeon would try to bite his head off first.
all that to go back to finding Soul Edge. And he actually does. But as he reaches for it, his heart is twisted by its evil energy. It shows him the spirit of his old master, Verchi, who praises him for a job well done. However, he states that Voldo's quest isn't over yet, and our boy knows exactly what that means. He's got to protect the blade. So the sword basically
Oh,
upped the security with
no.
another puppet. But hey, at least Voldo's happy. Also, I'm pretty sure he infiltrated the place before Sophitia got here because there is no mention of them fighting. Anyway, on to the guy Voldo was chasing, Yoshimitsu. Since Soulcalibur 3, he's been looking for his missing comrade from that botched heist. The search brings him and his clan to the west, where they finally find him with none other than Tira. Once Yoshi gets close,
There we go again. Tira over here being the instigator as always.
she dips. The missing officer then apologizes to his boys, but Yoshimitsu tells him it's all good. He's never seen Tira before, but he can tell something ain't right with her. As they treat the man's wounds,
could've told
he
you
explains
that.
what went down during their failed job. Tira stole the Soul Edge fragment they were trying to take, so he pursued her. However, it seemed like she wanted to be chased. She kept trying to square up with him at random points until they got to the valley, where she officially beat his ass. That's when the squad pulled up. But before his defeat, he heard her mention Soul Edge. Yoshimitsu has watched this blade cause havoc for years, but no more. It's time to put it at the top of his priority list. So he sends his men to gather as much info on it as possible. Once they find out that it's calling for its babies in Ostrheinsburg Castle, they move out. Now let's talk about the
Hell
second
yeah.
ninja within the roster. The hero. The legend. Taki. Somehow, after beating her morphed father, she made it to the Lost Cathedral in time to see the big clash. It took everything for her to escape the cataclysm, but unlike Tira, her mind didn't break, cause you know, she's the GOAT.
Yeah, she's
However, after
Taki.
seeing the power of both blades, she came to the same conclusion as every other level-headed person in this series. Both them swords are dangerous.
Well, yeah, but also I think lore reason too for Taki, her mind to still be intact was because wasn't she training with Mekimaru this entire time, which is also a cursed blade? So having cursed blade energy kind of spewing everywhere is probably just an everyday occurrence for her.
They gotta go. The energy from the clash infused with her swords, causing them to point in the direction of Ostrheinsburg Castle. Once she gets close, she runs into someone who knew Siegfried back in the day. He begs her to let his old friend fight this battle on his own, but Taki's not trying to risk that. Siegfried used to be Nightmare. How can she be sure that he won't get overwhelmed again?
Yeah,
With that, she
that's
pushes
fair.
past him and continues her trek toward the castle. Somewhere else in Europe, we find Mitsurugi still bored out of his mind. All he wants is to fight someone who can beat him within an inch of his life. That moment when everything is on the line is when he truly feels alive. Two assassins named Miser and Greed try to jump him for his Soul Edge shard, but he takes care of them no problem. However, the fight reminds him of the cursed fragment. Apparently, he completely forgot he was carrying it.
Oh,
It hasn't done anything
okay.
useful for him though, so he throws it away in disgust. Suddenly, it shines and then shoots off to the west. As he watches some of the other fragments from around the world fly through the sky, he's hit by a vision of Nightmare and Soul Edge. Finally, the universe is leading him to the man he's been itching to fight. Without another thought, our boy follows the shards. On his journey, he hears multiple stories about Nightmare's disastrous acts, and he runs into a variety of grotesque creatures that would scare even the strongest warriors. Yet all this does nothing but excite the samurai. It's been 4 games. He wants his dance with death now. And fam, remember when I said that this game feels like a finale even though it isn't? Well, nothing says finale more than Mitsurugi actually making it to the place where everything's going down.
Oh,
Thanks
shit.
to his old shard, he reaches the castle. But he
I mean, he's finally here. He's been wanting the smoke this entire time, and he's finally about to get it. But I can certainly feel the whole finale ending. We even have the massive tower where everybody is gathering in order to fight one final fight against the Soul Edge, against Nightmare, or for Nightmare and for the Soul Edge.
he's still Mitsurugi, so no, he does not end up fighting Nightmare.
Are you shitting me? God damn it, dude. I was excited about that. Never mind.
Who he does fight is the last person I expected, but we'll get to that in a bit. For the time being, let's move
Yoda.
on to the person who's been gunning for Mitsurugi since the last game, Setsuka. Her search for her father's killer brought her all the way to Europe, and cause she actually has a sense of direction, she managed to pick up his trail. On her travels, she runs into folks who talk about Mitsurugi like he's Nightmare. They're telling her that he's basically a one-man army. Doodle purposely joined the losing side in a war just for more hands. But instead of scaring Setsuka, these rumors just piss her off. She's not trying to hear all this negativity. Even if Mitsurugi was a god, she still wants the smoke. To build her confidence, she trains a ton, but she's hit by guilt after remembering her master's dying wish. He specifically said he did not want her to use his teachings for vengeance, and here she is doing so anyway. Regardless, she's come too far to stop now. Eventually, she reaches Ostrheinsburg. All that's left is to face a samurai who lives for battle. Elsewhere, we find Yunsung and Talum. The former is still searching for Soul Edge, even though Talum has warned him about his power countless times. When they get to Europe, they hear that the cursed sword caused some trouble in Egypt, so they head there to check it out. They're met by a devastating scene. And you'd think this would be enough for Yunsung to finally understand that Soul Edge is bad. But nah, all this does is prove to him that it is as strong as he's heard. He refuses to believe that the sword is inherently evil. It's his past users who were evil. Once he retrieves the blade, he'll be able to decide whether or not the rumors he heard were true.
You know, it's the whole, like, try anything at least once. I don't really think applies to this one. I do think there are some things in this world where you just shouldn't do it. Just don't. But I get it. You know, he's a hot-headed kid. He's gonna try and make his own way in the world and decide for himself about these things. And it's not gonna lead to anywhere good.
With that, the duo heads back to Istanbul, where they run into Sungmina. Back in Soulcalibur 3, she began her training with Edgemaster, but she dipped early the moment he told her the truth about Soul Edge. After reuniting with her hot-headed friend, she immediately tells him what she found out about the cursed sword. However, instead of listening, this dude fucking leaves by nightfall. He knows Sungmina's gonna try to drag him back home tomorrow. If he's gonna find Soul Edge, he can't have that. The next morning, Sungmina wakes up pissed. But the silver lining is that she can now share info with Talum. She tells Sungmina about Soulcalibur, and our girl is completely astonished by its powers.
Okay. At least Talum is a lot more level-headed from what we've seen. Like, she'll probably understand more and be more with the program. Work together with other people in order to actually do good here.
This sword is more deserving of the title Sword of Salvation. However, Talum warns that it's not perfect. It could be just as dangerous as Soul Edge. Sungmina keeps it in mind and then leaves to find more information on it. Her investigation points her to Ostrheinsburg Castle. She tries to keep looking for the spirit sword, but she's too worried about Yunsung challenging Nightmare and dying. So she drops a quest to head there. As for Yunsung, he makes it to the castle and finds Hwang of all people. In case you don't remember, our boy worshipped this dude. One of the reasons why he left was to prove his strength to him. To his surprise, Hwang confirms that Soul Edge is indeed evil. He came here to destroy it, but got his ass beat before even getting to Nightmare.
So wait, please tell me that Hwang telling you this, the literal person you left on this journey to go and fight the Soul Edge to prove to your Anarchy that you are big and strong and whatever, is telling you don't do it. I'm literally trying to destroy that exact thing you're trying to give here. That has to snap him out of this.
Yunsung is shocked by this. Even his goat is telling him that the sword is evil. But after hearing his pleas, the boy states that he's still dead set on getting the sword.
Are you fucking kidding me? This fucking bitch, dude. He'll never learn. He doesn't learn. He's gonna have to learn the hard way. Oh, God.
Homie said, I will fuck around, and goddammit, I will find out. Instead of arguing, Hwang takes a good, long look at the kid. He can tell that his journey has turned him into a man. A stupid man, but a man nonetheless.
Very stupid, yeah.
So he allows him to go, gambling the future of his country and the world on him.
Bro, we're really gonna put a lot of hope in this kid, Yunsung here, figuring out at the pivotal moment, this was not a good idea. And hey, you know, sometimes you need some tough love. I don't know if this is one of those times with this much stake to it, but, you know, it is what it is, I guess. The world is kind of messed up anyways. It probably couldn't get worse. Or maybe on second thought, Wang was like, Yunsung is kind of stupid. Even if he had all that power, he wouldn't be able to really do anything with it. I don't think that's what he was thinking, but it would be funny if it was.
With that, Yunsung proceeds to seek his destiny. Personally, I would have ignored him and dragged his ass back to Korea, but okay, Hwang. Back to Talum, after Sungmina's departure, she left Istanbul to continue her quest for Soulcalibur. One night, she spots a bunch of Soul Edge fragments moving across the sky like shooting stars. Then the fragment she owns joins them. Afterward, she's hit with more visions of the Spirit Sword. However, it seems way less pure now. She wonders if this could be its reaction to Soul Edge growing in strength. With worry in her eyes, she stares at the sky, feeling conflicted about the future. Now before we get into the final canon character in the roster, let's talk about how the Star Wars characters ended up here, as well as Kratos, because I don't know when I'll be able to talk about him again. Within their universe, Yoda and Darth Vader sense a strange disturbance within the galaxy. Algol is opening a portal to their dimension to test his mettle against their strongest warriors. After Darth Vader sends his apprentice, Starkiller, to scout the area.
Okay, how strong exactly is Algol to think I'm gonna go fight Darth Vader? I think that is kind of his hubris speaking. Like he really doesn't understand the power level of Darth Vader here. In fact, even I don't, because a lot of the things that I learned and like his feats that he's been able to accomplish was from the expanded universe, and I don't know too much about it. But what I have heard from you guys is that the comics are pretty darn hype.
He enters the portal, hoping to use the source of this disturbance to help the Empire rule the galaxy. As for Yoda, he fears that the dark side will use this mysterious power for evil, so he enters the Soulcal universe to stop it from getting into the wrong hands. In his ending, he releases the power of both swords from the Hero King, then returns to his dimension to continue the fight against the Empire. In Vader's ending, he kills Algol and obtains both swords. With them, he resumes his conquest of the galaxy. In Starkiller's ending, Homie leaves the swords in the Soulcal universe after defeating Algol. He returns to his master, claiming that they were both useless. So Vader's like,
"You insolent swine. You literally had one job."
Then they prepare to fight. But the text epilogue states that the outcome of this is a story for another day. I'm assuming this was done to further promote the Force Unleashed. When it comes to Kratos...
Yeah, I don't know too much about Starkiller as a character, but I think there's the whole thing of him not exactly, you know, being the good guy per se, but also not just being a full-on bad guy. Or it might just be the whole Sith thing where they have to kill their master. I'm pretty sure that's a thing. That, you know, maybe someday, several years from now, when I do finally decide to play The Force Unleashed, I might learn about his story.
He was actually summoned by one of the few survivors of Fegal Sestimus to get revenge on Astaroth. But when he stepped through the dimensional portal, he killed the man for daring to take him away from his quest to slay the Greek gods.
Okay, this is angry Kratos too. I don't know much about the God of War series. I just know like from pure osmosis of media and general pop culture. But from my understanding, angry Kratos is not somebody who you want to get in the way of, let alone summon to your dimension to try and do your bidding. He is not going to listen. This man kills gods. I bet you Hephaestus is very much shaking in his boots right now.
He soon realizes that he's in a completely different era. The Soul Edge fragment used to bring him here tries to twist his heart, but the hate in Kratos' soul overpowers it. Then he's hit by visions of both the Cursed Sword and the Spirit Sword. He surmises that using both will bring him back home, so he heads out to find them. I love how Kratos is so set on getting his vengeance that he doesn't give a fuck about Soulcalibur or Soul Edge.
Yeah,
We could use them to kill the gods, but nah. To him, they're just return tickets to his time. Oh, and if you'd like to learn more about our boy Kratos over here, I made a whole video about his story.
Oh, well, there you go. I might check that out.
It's currently close to 3 million views, so getting it there would be super dope. Yo, future don't you hear? So I originally planned to skip these guys because most of them are not relevant to the plot, but there are 5 bonus characters in this game designed by guest artists. It wouldn't really be the entire history of Soulcalibur 4 if I didn't go over them, so let's speedrun through their origins. First is Algol Fear, a marshal sent from the will of the cosmos to judge whether or not Earth should be saved from execution. She was designed by mangaka Mine Yoshizaki, the creator of Keroro Gunso or Sergeant Frog. Algol Fear actually...
That I do know of, but also kind of the interesting, like, sharp nipple design? Not really sure what we're going for here.
appears in the manga, but funny enough, her debut was in Soulcalibur 4. Second is Kamikiri Musi, an Oni who was sealed by an Onmyoto practitioner back in the Heian period. And get this! Turns out the practitioner was an ancestor of Arthur's wife. Crazy connection.
Oh.
She was created by Japanese character designer and anime director Hirokazu Hisayuki, who worked on projects such as Queen's Blade. Third is Shura, a killer who, like Mitsurugi, was just looking for a challenge. However, on her travels, she was possessed by a vengeful spirit seeking a perfect body to return to. She was designed by mangaka Hiroya Oku, the creator of the batshit insane sci-fi manga Gantz.
Oh, okay. You know, I can kind of see his style there. I have read the original manga for Gantz all the way to the ending, which you could kind of tell that bro was kind of tired of Gantz and wanted to move on to different projects at that point. But it's interesting. Maybe I missed this, but like, why do we have all these guest artists creating OCs for the game? Did we just invite them on, or did they like want to make a character for the game? Part of some sort of collab to promote them as well? Mayhaps also just be a marketing thing.
That story was so crazy, I finished it in 2 sittings. If you're into cosmic horror, I definitely recommend it. Fourth is the only one who's actually relevant to the plot, Ashlot. Some of the survivors of Fecal Sestimus, specifically the priests of Venus and Mars, created her to put Astaroth down. She was made by the GOAT Ito Ogure, otherwise known as Oh Great. If that name doesn't ring a bell, he's the man behind one of my favorite manga, Air Gear. If you're into Jet Set Radio and crazy shonen battles, please give this series a try.
Okay, I have seen a couple episodes of Air Gear. Haven't really finished it. It's been a while as well, but I do know of the series and have heard of it.
However, I'd recommend the manga over the anime. Anyway,
That's fair.
Last but not least, we have Scheherazade, a storyteller who was imprisoned because she fell in love with the hero who founded the kingdom of Wolfkrone. We'll get into who that is in a sec.
Okay.
She was designed by Yutaka Izubuchi, a Japanese illustrator, anime designer, and director who created the Raw Z font series. Now,
That one I don't know of. Never heard of it.
let's go into the last character in the roster, who also happens to be the one true newcomer introduced in this title,
Hilde.
Hildegard von Krone. She hails from the European kingdom of Wolfkrone, a place with some deep history within the Soulcal universe.
Okay, not gonna lie, dudes. I have a type, and it's Hilde. Like, no cap. Like, Hilde is so freaking cool. I wish I enjoyed her playstyle more than I do. But, you know, there's just something about the whole, like, armored knight lady, or I guess the tactical style as well. That really does it for me. Plus, I mean, like, red hair. You can't really go wrong.
According to the new legends of Project Soul, it was founded thanks to a legendary warrior known as Wolf. During ancient times, the kingdom struggled against Roman forces led by a man who wielded Soul Edge. Wolf appeared out of nowhere and defeated the invaders with Soulcalibur and a spear. From then on, he continued to protect the kingdom from further sieges.
It makes sense. We have learned that at different points in history, ever since ancient history, wherever Soul Edge is, Soulcalibur will appear.
Thanks to this legend, Wolfkrone's treasured weapons became the Glanzenda Nova and Frisha Himo, a sword and spear based on Wolf's victory against the Romans. Over time, George von Krone, Hilda's father, was chosen as king and proved to be a superb leader. One of his greatest feats was resolving the religious conflicts in the area by establishing laws and policies that encouraged the coexistence of different beliefs. Modern-day leaders could learn a lot from this guy. Sadly, Wolfkrone's prosperity didn't last forever. The first part of his downfall happened during the Evil Seed incident of 1583. The wave of evil energy drove the king mad, forcing his people to lock him in solitary confinement. This left Hilda to rule as queen at the crazy age of 11.
Shit.
This draws an interesting parallel to Tira. They both had to skip their childhoods, but unlike Tira, Hilda didn't lose her shit.
Okay. I mean, yeah, but Hilda, I think, was, despite the terrible situation, probably in a better environment than what Tira got.
She locked the fuck in and served as a queen her father would be proud of. Even though she had moments where she desperately wanted to give up, she stayed strong and kept pushing. It's honestly pretty inspiring.
She's so cool.
Then, her true grit is tested in 1590, when the corruption of Ostrheinsburg becomes a problem for her and her kingdom. She and a couple of soldiers run into a band of mercenaries who barely survived their trek to the city. One of the survivors mentioned Siegfried. She wasn't strong enough to help him, but she thinks Hilda can. Our girl eventually finds a lone knight, but he hits her with the same thing he's been telling everyone else. This is my battle.
Yeah.
Stay out of it. Hilda doesn't take this decline personally, though. Seeing him in his crystallized armor wielding Soulcalibur made him seem trustworthy. However, she's not about to leave the fate of her home to this rando. So the next day, she prepares her troops for a raid on the castle, while the inhabitants of Wolfkrone barricade themselves in their city.
Well, I'm assuming what she's trying to do here is at least give him some sort of distraction so that he can get to the Soul Edge. and take off some of the heat from him, which, is a valid way to help somebody who doesn't want to be helped. We're just helping you indirectly.
Normally, this would be the perfect time for a motivational speech, but Hilda's people believe in her so much that they don't even need it. They all understand the importance of this raid and have full faith in their queen.
I mean, she's kind of led you since she was 11, and you have survived up until now. I'm assuming throughout that entire time span, she's been able to prove herself again and again. At that point, yeah, I can certainly understand a lot of trust within their royalty.
With that, Hilda leads her soldiers to the final battle. Now that all the pieces are in place, let's get to the climactic end of Soulcalibur 4. Once Siegfried reaches Nightmare, the Azure Knight opens the door to Astral Chaos. They're gonna handle their shit there. While that happens, my man Mitsurugi decides to step into the dimension too. There he climbs the Tower of Remembrance to find Algol waiting for the smoke. The one
Okay, I mean, Mitsurugi doesn't get to fight Nightmare, but getting to fight Algol? Maybe that's a step above.
time Mitsurugi's terrible sense of direction actually works out for him. They duel, but it's cut short when Siegfried beats Nightmare. He shatters Soul Edge, turning the knight into dust. Then both the pieces of the Cursed Sword and Soulcalibur vanish without a trace. As Astral Chaos begins to close, the Tower of Remembrance as well as Algol disappear. His battle with Mitsurugi is unfortunately left as a draw. But remember how Cassandra got knocked out by Sophitia earlier? Well, all this commotion wakes her up. She desperately tries to look for her sister. When she finds her, an astral gate opens right in front of her and sucks her in. A moment later, the dimension finally releases its hold on the castle. Siegfried leaves the area determined to clean up the broken world Soul Edge left behind. Poor Mitsurugi is forced to return to his quest for smoke.
So wait, is Sophitia just stuck in Astral Chaos now too?
But luckily for him, another combatant is waiting to throw hands. We'll get into that in the next video. As for Cassandra, well, after the dust settled, she was nowhere to be found. We'll get into her
Okay, no, it was Cassandra who got sucked away. Gotcha.
fate in the Soulcalibur 6 video. But trust me when I say that she got savaged. Regardless,
Wait, the Soulcalibur 6 video? I thought there was only up to Soulcalibur 5, and we were done. Maybe I just didn't see it, or maybe it's still in the works?
this marks the end of yet another chapter in the Soulcalibur story. But even though this feels like a finale, Soul Edge isn't done with this world yet. 17 years from now, disaster will strike again, and it'll be up to a whole new set of heroes to save the land.
Yeah, there you go. There's the new set of people. All right. Well, we really weren't kidding when we said that we were going to get into like more darker tones with this particular story. And there were a lot of choices here, which I don't really know if I'm much of a fan of. Like, I have seen a lot of these character tropes or I guess narrative directions with characters in other series and seen it work to great effect. But I also don't really know if it works as well here. May also just be because like I'm experiencing the story through a video, so it gives off a different feeling if you're actually playing through the game. And I suppose I also have the extra information of Soulcalibur 5 not being the greatest thing ever. So like a lot of these plot points end up leading into that, and it's just maybe a bit of a shaky foundation. Still though, there were a lot of really cool ideas and a lot of really cool collab characters or characters from other artists as well, with some really cool and let's say unique designs. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in Soulcalibur 5, good or bad. But you know, it's cool to learn about the history of the series. For now though, I think I'm going to sign off here. So thank you guys so much for joining me. Hope you enjoyed your time here. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And I'll catch you guys in the next one.